Hello everybody, I'm Scotty. Welcome back to Scotty's Clock World. Turn the let down tool a tiny bit, screwdriver in under the click, let it spin in your hand a little way, not all the way. Turn it over. Oop, come down a little bit too far. I'll wind that up a tiny little bit. See if we can get out. There we go. That's better. Relatively tight. So we'll just let it down a tiny little bit and then check it again. No, still loose, which is good. Let it down a little bit more. You can see the clamps getting tight there now, it's not moving. Back with a let down tool, wind it up slightly, screwdriver into the click. Let the let down tool spin round in your hand. And then have a look. You can see that that spring is fully contained by the clamp. It's now safe to take the movement apart. But you must remember there may be a little bit of tension still left up the train. Each one of those series of wheels is called a train. This is the time train. This is the strike train over here. Count lever. So I'll get a spanner that fits and we'll start taking the movement to piece. Always handy to have some little spanners. You collect these over a period of time. That's 7mm. They're a lot easier to use than a little shifting spanner. They just fit on. Then you can start to loosen each one of the nuts. There's actually 5 nuts on this. I'll just start loosening them a tiny bit. Then we'll remove the crutch. Here we go. Pull that back. Now I'll take that little lever off there that holds the crutch and pallets in place. I'll very carefully lift up the suspension spring. That comes out. Put that aside for a moment. What we've got here, well, I've just taken off. That piece there is called the pendulum leader. The pendulum sits on that hook on the bottom. That's the suspension spring. This piece here is a crutch. They are called the pallets. They sit on the escape wheel. And we'll look into that a lot more deeply once we get to that part of it. Right, now we can take off there's 5 nuts on there. We've loosened off 4 of them. Now I can get at the 5th one under here. And these 2 up here. Now we carefully start to remove the top plate, being conscious there may be a tiny little bit of tension in either of these trains. So we don't want wheels jumping out all over the place and or being damaged. Lift them up carefully. That was a little bit of tension you heard then. Things jumped around. And that one. And that one. Now we'll lift the top plate off. Move the escape wheel to one side. Pinion's caught on it. There we go. That's the top plate. We'll remove the escape wheel. That's the escape wheel. You can always pick the escape wheel because the teeth are totally different than a normal clock wheel. As you can see, these ones here, if I put it beside it, totally different. The escape wheel always sits at the top of the time train, always. Alright, so there's our movement. Now, we'll start taking it to pieces, a bit at a time. I'll name each of the parts as we go along, and then we'll put them down the side, and then we can have a look and see what condition the pivots and the bushes are in, and then continue. To let the mainspring down, we need one of these, a leather glove. We'll hold the great wheel in the glove, hold it tightly. We'll put the let down tool on top of the winding arbor and holding the great wheel firmly into the plate, we'll start to wind up the mainspring. We're waiting to see when the mainspring clamp drops off. There we go. It's gone. We get that out of the way. Now, take another screwdriver and lift the spring off the click. And having done that, we can then let the let down tool slowly turn round in our hand as the spring unwinds. And there it is, the spring is now unwound. Bearing in mind, always have a nice strong leather glove on your hand before you attempt that. We'll remove the let down tool, then lift up the great wheel with the spring off the plate and very carefully make sure that there's no pressure left in it. And that's how you remove the spring if you haven't got a spring winder. Now to get the spring off from the winding arbor, this piece here on the great wheel, you turn it in the opposite direction. See if that'll flick it out a bit easier. You don't want to drag on the spring because you don't want it to pyramid. I'll explain that to you in a moment once we've finished wrestling with this to get it off. It is very nicely attached to that, so I'll loosen a little bit with the screwdriver So that should now come out pretty easily. Turn it round. That's got him. Finally. I'll flip that click back. And put the click spring back behind the click. That's where it normally sits there. And to check that, we just put a let down tool on it, turn it round. You can see it rotates only in one direction. Right, so there's our spring that we've taken off. Lie it down flat. You can see it's nice and flat. I was saying before, if you pull the spring too hard when you're trying to get it off the main wheel, you can seriously damage the spring, and it will what's called pyramid, and it'll sort of sit like that, and that completely ruins the spring. You'll notice it's flat because we took it out properly. So if you pull too hard on it, you're going to do that to it. All right, I'll take the other one off now, and then we'll come back. We'll clean the springs and grease them, and we'll do it by hand because we're not using a spring winder. If you want to learn how to service, repair and restore 19th and 20th century mechanical clocks, then subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell.